life is my message, Sai says, and he teaches us in myriad ways. My life is my message, Sai says, and he teaches us in myriad ways. As a child he began his mammoth mission to awaken divinity in us was his vision. As a child he began his mammoth mission to awaken divinity in us was his vision.
My birthday is the day that divinity dawns in your hearts. So says our beloved Sri Sathya Sai Baba, the greatest guru of humanity and the avatar of the Kali age. On this holiest of holy days, when we joyously celebrate the birth of our God and Guru, we are filled with gratitude for the incredible fortune of being born as his contemporaries, for hearing his glories, for being able to fill our eyes and hearts with his darshan, for filling our beings with his teachings. His is the sweet path of love, and through that all-encompassing love, he teaches, awakens, reforms, encourages, graces, and enchants us. In this day of technology, we're used to seeing the grandeur of his global mission, his beautiful ashrams, schools, universities, hospitals, and the immensity of his upliftment of humanity. But every story has a beginning, and the grandeur of the later years was built on the sweetness and simplicity of the early years. In this beautiful form of Sri Sathya Sai Baba, our Swami's story begins in a little village in South India, where in 1926, a divine child was born to Srimati Ishwarama and Sri Pedda Venkamaraju. Ishwarama was a simple God-loving village girl whose heart was filled with love and compassion. So the divine chose her to be his earthly mother. And just like Devaki, Yashoda, and Kausalya, her name will forever be remembered as the mother of God himself, the one through whom the light of the world descended.
Bhakti Bhakt Bhagavant Guru चतुष्नाम बपु एक, इनके पद बंदन किए, मेटत विघ्न जन्म दिया तूने साई को, हम पे किया उपकार। जन्म दिया तूने साई को, हम पे किया उपकार। ईश्वरम तेरा साई युग युग का जग है मिथ्या साई ने सच्ची राह दिखाई। जग है मिथ्या साई ने सच्ची राह दिखाई। सबसे कर तू प्यार ये जीवन बने तेरा सुखदाई। ऐसा दे उपदेश प्रभु ने हम पे किया उपकार। ऐसा दे उपदेश प्रभु ने हम पे किया उपकार। ईश्वरम्मा तेरा साई युग युग का अवतार। युग युग का अवतार।
As the birth of Ishwarama's eighth child neared, the instruments in the Raju family home played divine music by themselves, and all of nature seemed to hold its breath. And at dawn on Monday, Kartika Somvara, November 23rd, 1926, love incarnate was born in the form of little Satyanarayana Raju. Soon after his birth, a snake was found under the baby's bed, just as Adishesha found a bed for Lord Narayana. Baby Sathya never cried. His beauty and demeanor captivated everyone's heart and filled the house with love. We can imagine Mother Ishwarama singing this lullaby for baby Sathya.
రేపల్లె బాలుని వలె మా పల్లెలు పుట్టావు. రేపల్లె బాలుని వలె మా పల్లెలు పుట్టావు. గోపాలుడివా నీవు గోవిందుడివా. గోపాలుడివా నీవు గోవిందుడివా. నారాయణ సత్యనారాయణ నారాయణ సత్యనారాయణ. అక్షయ సంవత్సరాన కార్తీక మాసాన శివునికి ప్రియమైన సోమవారాన పుట్టినావు. అక్షయ సంవత్సరాన కార్తీక మాసాన శివునికి ప్రియమైన సోమవారాన పుట్టినావు. నారాయణ వ్రత వేళలు నవ్వులు చింతించినావు. నారాయణ వ్రత వేళలు నవ్వులు చింతించినావు. నాగసాయిగా దర్శనమిచ్చినావు తండ్రి. నాగసాయిగా దర్శనమిచ్చినావు తండ్రి. పరమశివుడివా నీవు పరమాత్ముడివా. పరమశివుడివా నీవు పరమాత్ముడివా. నారాయణ సత్యనారాయణ నారాయణ సత్యనారాయణ. అరుణారుల కాంతులు నీ కన్నులతో విరిసెను. శాంతులు నివ్వాలి నీ చల్లని చూపులే సుఖ శాంతులు నివ్వాలి నారాయణ సత్యనారాయణ నారాయణ సత్యనారాయణ రేపల్లి బాలుని వలె మా పల్లెను పుట్టావు గోపాలుడివా నీవు గోవిందుడివా నారాయణ సత్యనారాయణ నారాయణ సత్యనారాయణ నారాయణ
A Jewish poet once said, "Could we with ink the ocean fill, and wear the skies of parchment made, where every stalk on earth a quill, and every man a scribe by trade, to write the love of God above, 'twould drain the ocean dry, nor could the scroll contain the whole, though stretched from sky to sky." It is impossible to describe Swami or his love in the next brief hour. But in this presentation of love that we offer with love for Swami on his birthday, we journey back in time with a combination of music, photos, videos, and a narration to enjoy his beautiful early years of childhood, filled with leelas when, as Satyanarayana Raju or Little Sathya, he captured the hearts of his family and the entire village of Puttaparthi, just as Lord Krishna did in Gokul millennia ago. We will see some key events in his life, culminating with his declaration of avatarhood in October 20th, 1940, at the tender age of 14 years, with the clarion call to seek refuge at his feet. The next chapter of Mahimas then begins, in which Swami's light begins to expand and attract yearning hearts from far and wide. These early devotees enjoyed extremely precious moments with the young avatar, on the sands of the Chitravati, on the seashore, in the Patha Mandiram, and throughout India, from Badrinath in the north to Kanyakumari in the south. And then, as he foretold, the divine chapter of Bday begins, when Swami assumed the full mantle of his divine mission to reach and uplift humanity. Let us begin this beautiful journey when Sathya was just a child.
Lord, even as a toddler, you love to share with this sacrifice of yours. You taught us to care. Lord, even as a toddler, you love to share with this sacrifice of yours. You taught us to care. Your own share of food you were ready to forego, and never once did you allow anyone unfed to go. Your own share of food you were ready to forego, and never once did you allow anyone unfed to go.
Even at a young age, the divine child Sathya was known for his extraordinary love and compassion. His heart melted at human suffering. Whenever a hungry beggar appeared at the door, Sathya used to run inside and bring food for him, even if it meant foregoing lunch or dinner himself. While others relished non-vegetarian food, little Sathya would advise them to desist from such cruel habits. Sathya's grandfather, Sri Kondamaraju, was the only one who recognized Sathya's divinity very early on. When little Sathya was put into primary school in Puttaparthi, he would recount stories of gods and goddesses, always replete with lessons to learn for his little friends. Sathya often delighted his little friends with sweets, pens, pencils by bringing them out of his empty pocket. Divine Sathya also counseled them on the right way to lead their lives. From those early days, he led them in the practice of Nama Smarana by forming the Pandari Bhajan group in the village of Puttaparthi. The group consisted of young boys dressed in ochre clothes, singing Bhagavata songs which Sathya would himself compose. The older villagers would look and marvel at this little child's abilities. Gradually, some began to recognize that Sathya was a divine child, and the villagers started referring to him as Brahmagyani, the knower and proponent of Brahman or Godhood. At the age of 8, Sathya was sent to live with his older brother, Sri Seshamaraju, and his wife to pursue his education at Bukkapatnam. It is around this time that an amazing incident occurred at the Sri Virupaksha temple, which Swami now himself narrates.
ఆ బళ్ళారి లోపల 3 దినములు వాళ్ళు ఇంటిలో పెట్టుకున్నారు.
Bhagavan stayed at the residence of the chairman of the corporation.
అక్కడ నుంచి చాలా సమీపంగా ఉంటున్నదని విరూపాక్ష దేవాలయం తీసుకెళ్లారు.
And Bhagavan was taken to Virupaksha temple, which happens to be very close to the house of the chairman.
అప్పుడు శేషమరాజు అతని ఇల్లాలు లోపలి వెళ్ళి మేము విరూపాక్షని దర్శించుకొని వస్తాము, నీవు ఈ సామాన్ దగ్గర ఉండు అన్నారు.
Seshamaraju and his wife wanted Bhagavan to take care of all their belongings outside as they would go into the temple to have the visit of the holy shrine.
సరే నేను ఇక్కడే ఉంటానని ఒప్పుకున్నాను.
Swami accepted their proposal.
వీరు ఇరువురు కూడాను దేవాలయంలో వెళ్ళారు.
Both husband and wife have gone into the temple.
అక్కడికి వెళ్లితే గర్భగుడి లోపల నేనే అక్కడ నిల్చుకున్నట్టుగా కనిపించింది.
There both of them saw Bhagavan there in the sanctorum of the temple.
ఈ శేషమరాజుకు చాలా డౌట్స్.
Seshamaraju has so many doubts.
ఏం బయట కూర్చోమని చెప్తే వీడు ఇక్కడికి ఎందుకు వచ్చాడు?
How is it that I asked Satyam to stay outside the temple? How is it that I find him
తిరిగి బయటకు
inside the
వచ్చి
temple?
చూశాడు.
And he came out.
నేను అక్కడే కూర్చున్నాను.
There he saw Swami there.
మళ్ళీ లోపల పోయాడు, అక్కడ ఉన్నాను.
He went inside. There he saw Swami again.
కానీ ఇంకా ఆయన డౌట్స్ పోలేదు.
Still he was having doubts.
భార్యను బయట పోమన్నాడు.
He asked his wife to go outside.
నీవు అక్కడ సత్యం దగ్గర ఉండు.
You stay with Satyam there outside the temple.
సత్యాన్ని కదలనివ్వకుండా చేసుకో.
See that Satyam won't move. He will be there only.
నేను లోపల వెళ్తానని వెళ్ళాడు.
And he said,
అక్కడ కూడాను నవ్వుతూ నేను ఉండినాను.
and he has gone inside. There he found smiling Bhagavan there.
ఈ రెండు కూడాను
sanctorum.
మాతోనే వచ్చినటువంటి ఒక కమిషనర్ రాజు కూడాను చూస్తూ వచ్చాడు.
All this was noticed by the commissioner who accompanied them.
బయటకు వచ్చిన తర్వాత
After coming out,
శేషమరాజు చేతులు పట్టుకొని
he caught hold of the hands of Seshamaraju.
రాజు, మీరు చాలా పొరపడుతున్నారు.
He said, Raju, you are mistaken.
ఇతను మీ సోదరుడు కాదు.
He is not your brother.
కేవలము సామాన్యమైనటువంటి ఒక వ్యక్తి కాదు.
He is not an ordinary person.
నీవు ఈ వ్యక్తి భావంతో నువ్వు చాలా పొరపడుతున్నావు.
Because of his body relationship, you are mistaken.
ఇది పెద్ద డివైన్ పవర్ అన్నాడు.
This is the divine power.
My life is my message, Sai says, and he teaches us in myriad ways. My life is my message, Sai says, and he teaches us in myriad ways. As a child he began his mammoth mission to awaken divinity in us was his vision. As a child he began his mammoth mission to awaken divinity in us was his vision.
I would uncomplainingly help with household chores in his brother's house, including carrying water from miles away. Little did anyone suspect that everything was about to change. One momentous day, the mission began in earnest. On October 20th, 1940, Sathya had gone to school as usual in Uravakunda, but soon returned home, threw his books aside, and declared to his startled sister-in-law, "I'm no longer yours. Maya is gone. I must go. My devotees are calling." When she tried to question him and asked, "Who are you?" Sathya took a handful of jasmine flowers and threw them on the floor. Miraculously, they spelled Sai Baba in Telugu script. Again, Swami himself describes the incredible time when he gave himself to the whole world.
హంపి నుండి వచ్చి స్కూలుకి అరుగుచ్చు బాబా కాలని పిన్నకట జారి కనపడలేదు.
Returning from Hampi, wearing the collar while Baba was pushing
మార్పు
the school,
కలిగెను నాడు.
this pin dropped on its way, which is not seen.
ప్రాపంచిక సంబంధం పిన్నయి తొలగే.
The whole worldly feeling is dropped like the pin.
ఈ ప్రాపంచిక సంబంధం అంతా ఒక పిన్నుతో సమానం నాకు.
The whole worldly feeling is like a pin after all.
అది తొలగిపోయింది.
It lost, it vanished.
భక్తుల బాధలను ఒప్పించే నిమిత్తమై నేను వెళ్ళాలి అన్నాను.
I must go to give relief to my devotees who are having umpteen sufferings.
అక్కడ నుంచి ఈ పుస్తకాలు అక్కడ పారవేశాను.
He dropped, thrown away the books.
అక్కడ ఎక్సైజ్ కమిషనర్ అని హనుమంతరావు అని ఉండేవాడు.
There was Commissioner Hanumantarao.
వారి తోటకు వెళ్ళాను.
Bhagavan went to there.
వచ్చాడు.
Seshamrazu came.
సత్య ఇంటికి పోదామరా అని చాలా బాధ పెట్టాడు.
Seshamrazu forced him, "Sathya, let us go back, let's return home."
నేను రాను అన్నాను.
I will not come.
ఎప్పుడూ నేను జవాబు చెప్పేటువంటి స్వభావం లేదు.
Bhagavan has no temperament to say no to
ఆ
anybody.
జవాబులు చెప్పుతుంటే అతనికే చాలా ఆశ్చర్యం వేసింది.
He was very much surprised to listen no from Bhagavan.
ఈ సత్యానికి ఇంత ధైర్యం ఎక్కడి నుంచి వచ్చింది?
How is that Sathya is so courageous now?
నవ్వుతూ ఉంటుంటే నా ముఖం యొక్క తేజస్సు అంతా కూడాను అతనికి చాలా కప్పిపెట్టుతున్నది.
With a smiling face, around the Bhagavan was seen the brilliance and the radiance which has mystified the brother.
And then, after a space was prepared for him to sit on a large boulder in Hanumantarau's garden, Sathya sat unmoving for a couple of days, inhabiting his own divine reality. His parents rushed to him and tried to persuade him to come home. But Sathya declared to his shocked mother, "You are Maya. I no longer belong to you." He then began his tremendous task of uplifting all of humanity by teaching the first immortal bhajans, Manasa bhajore guru charanam, meaning, "O mind, sing the glory of the Lord's feet, which will take you across the ocean of worldly life." Let's go back in time to that most auspicious day.
मानस भजरे गुरु चरणं दुस्तर भव सागर तरणं गुरु महाराज गुरु जय जय साईनाथ सद्गुरु जय जय ओम नमः शिवाय ओम
Sathya returned to Puttaparthi and stayed at the home of Srimati Karnam Subamma. His fame spread, and every day the crowds grew larger and larger. Srimati Subamma lovingly welcomed everyone who came to see Swami, as he began to be called, and looked after him as a mother would a child, insisting that he eat and sleep in the midst of taking care of his ever-growing followers. Swami always said that Subamma was as much a mother to him as Yashoda was to Krishna. Along with bhajans and other devotional songs that would be sung every day, Swami imparted simple teachings to his followers as much through his example as through his words. Many of the early devotees we read about in Satyam Sivam Sundaram came in these years, the early 1940s, including Kuppam family and Sri Seshagiri Rao and his extended family, who recorded many happenings of those early years in song. Swami welcomed them, astonished many by his knowledge of their lives and incidents which only they knew about, and quickly became the focus of their lives. In 1945, Srimati Karanam Kamalamma and Srimati Karanam Subamma gifted Swami the land they held in Puttaparthi, and along with other devotees helped to construct a 20-foot by 10-foot shed with a tin roof, a small bhajan hall, and a few other rooms. In December 1945, the Padamandiram was inaugurated and devotees began to flock there to be with Swami. He lived among them and was one of them, participating in all the activities, laughing and joking, singing with them, correcting them, and always teaching by precept and by example. He even performed arti with them to his own picture.
Although their living arrangements were rustic and rugged, the nectar of living with love incarnate more than sufficed for those early devotees of Swami. The daily routine in those days revolved around Swami, and through the songs composed both by him and his devotees, there was this constant hum of Namasmarana. A walk to the sands of the Chitravati river was a daily occurrence and formed the backdrop of many precious memories and miraculous incidents. Swami would be talking with his devotees or singing and idly digging in the sand, and out came sweets, laddus, beautiful bronze or silver statues of Krishna, Rama, Sita, among many others. One devotee recalls how Swami, in response to the hunger of some of his devotees, took out hot, fragrant laddus, dripping with ghee, nuts, and raisins out of the sand. And there was not a single grain of sand on any of them. He describes how they were the most delicious laddus he had ever tasted, and after that, their hunger was appeased for 2 days. Swami took them on climb up the hill to the Kalpavriksha tree, and from there, once blessed them with Vishwarupa Darshan. As always, these precious incidents were captured in songs.
నామస్మరణానందము సత్య సాయి బాబా కోమలాంగా కామితార్థ రమణ శరణం మన్నులో నా వెన్న వంటి తనవి లడ్డు తినను భక్తుల మనసు రంజిలగాను చేసే దాసజనులకు మైసూర్ పాకు ఆశాదీరా ఇసుక ఏటిలో ఇచ్చినవే వేషాదారి మోటార్లో నా పెట్రోల్ లేక నీరు పోసి దారి నడిపిన శౌరి నీవే గౌరీ రమణ వేణు సునాదము వినిపించితివే దీనా బంధు అనువుగాను శివుని కన్ను కొండపై చూపి స్మరణానందము సత్య సాయి బాబా.
On special occasions, the crowd swelled further. Shivratri and Dashera were important festivals from the early days. Explaining the special significance of Mahashivratri, Swami exhorted all devotees to engage in continuous Nam-smarana to subdue the mind and purify their hearts. As Mahashivratri neared, Swami, the incarnation of Shiva and Shakti, seemed to exude tremendous energy and would often warn devotees not to come near him. In later years, he began to perform the miraculous Vibhuti Abhishekam to the idol of Shirdi Baba and manifest holy lingams from within himself, the God incarnate manifesting the creative power of the universe. The grandeur of the beautiful Shiva himself was extolled in song.
Pashupatishwara Parvati Pate Hara Chidambara Mrugapate Pashupatishwara Parvati Pate Hara Chidambara Mrugapate Sri Maheshwara Shulapane Shankara Girijapate Shankara Girijapate Shankara Girijapate Jaya Jaya He Shankar Basmanga Sundar Jaya Jaya He Shambho Jaya Jaya Swayambho Omkara Shambho Shambho.
Dasera was also a very special occasion. Although Puttaparthi was a very small village with very few streets, Swami would be taken slowly in procession from the village to the mandir in palanquins decorated differently for each of the 9 days. A swan on one day, a peacock on another day, a garuda on the 3rd day, a lotus on the 4th day, and so on. And Swami's robe and dhotis used to match the theme. If the palanquin was a lotus, then he would wear a parrot green dhoti to match it. When it was Garuda, he used to wear the white robe like Lord Vishnu. When Swami was on the palanquin, they used to see vibhuti materializing on his forehead in 3 distinct lines. The vibhuti would constantly keep falling, and then it would slowly get crystallized into 3 horizontal golden lines on his forehead. As the years went by, the Dasera celebrations became more elaborate, and around 1961, the Veda Purusha Saptaha Jnana Yagnam was organized for the first time in Prashanti Nilayam. Again, we can visualize those precious occasions through song.
Paramanandam Baba Dasaranandam Baba Gadachina Dasaranandam Gadachina Dasaranandam కన్నులు పండువ కాచినందం భక్తుల మహదానందం గడచిన దసరానందం నిత్యోత్సవముల పూజానందం చూచుటకే ఆనందం కుంకుమ అర్చన గంధ పంచామృతముల అభిషేకములానందం వాద్యములే ఘంట సునాదముల్ సాయినాథునిపై భక్తుల భజనల గీతం గడచిన దసరానందం ఆ మహోత్సవమున అన్న వస్త్రంబుల దానములానందం భక్తుల జన్మ సాఫల్యమయే ఆశ్చర్యం బది పరమాశ్చర్యం బాబా మహిమానందం గడచిన దసరానందం నవవిధ వాహనములపై మెరిసే ఉత్సవముల ఆనందం విజయదశమి దిగ్విజయమునకై విజయదశమి దిగ్విజయమునకై కోదండదారివయ్యే సాయిషుడే రాజాదిరాజుడే సత్య సాయిషుడు అంబులు విడచిన నందం గడచిన దసరానందం గడచిన దసరానందం.
Swami started traveling beyond Puttaparthi, visiting devotees' homes in Chennai, Anandpur, throughout Andhra Pradesh, Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, and many small towns in the length and breadth of India. Sometimes incredibly, he would arrive unannounced, just out of his love for his devotees. After one of his devotees gifted him a car, he himself would drive, making the usually overnight journey from Puttaparthi to Chennai in just a few hours. Everywhere he went, he captured the hearts and guided devotees, taught them the highest truths simply, inspired, rejuvenated their spiritual practices, and encouraged them to engage in seva to their fellow human beings. As the crowds continued to grow, a few acres of land was gifted to Swami by Srimati Sakama. In 1950, the mandir at Prashanti Nilayam, lovingly built by his devotees, was inaugurated. And in 1953, at the age of 32, as he himself had foretold, Swami truly began his grand mission
of teaching and discoursing widely and guiding humanity out of the morass it was in. His very first discourse was captured in written form, and in it, he laid out his sankalpa.
When I was at Uravakonda studying in the high school, I came away one day and threw off my books and declared that I have work waiting for me. Well, that day when I came out publicly as Sai Baba, that first song I taught the gathering in the garden to which I went from the Telugu Pandit's house was Manasa Bajare Gurucharanam, Dustara Bhavasagara Taranam. I called on all those suffering in the endless round of birth and death to worship the feet of the Guru, the spiritual preceptor. The Guru who was himself announcing, who had come again for taking upon himself the burden of those who find refuge in him. That was the very first message of mine to humanity. Manasa Bhajare, worship in the mind. I have been all these days generally giving individual advice like the packets available in shops and giving answers to individual questions. This speech today is a new experience for you. I am addressing a gathering today, but even though it may be new to you, for me it is not new. I have given advice to large gatherings before, though not in this appearance. Whenever the formless becomes one with form, it has to fulfill the mission, and it does so in various ways. But the one purpose, the re-education of man, persists, whatever the era. The first 16 years of this life have been, as I have often told you, the period when divine child sport predominated. And the next 16 is being spent mostly in miracles in order to give joy to this generation. Joy and contentment are short-lived sensations. You have to catch that mood and make it a permanent possession. Bliss, Ananda. After the 32nd year, you will see me more active more and more in the task of spiritual instruction, teaching erring humanity and in directing the world along the path of truth, righteousness, peace and love, Sathya, Dharma, Shanti and Prema. Not that I am determined to exclude plays and miracles from my activity after that. I only mean that re-establishing Dharma, correcting the crookedness of the human mind, and guiding humanity back to Sanatana Dharma, the eternal universal religion, will be my task thereafter. Don't be led away by doubt and vain argument. Do not question how and whether I can do all this. The cowherds of Vrindavan also doubted whether the little boy Krishna, who grew in their midst, could lift the Govardhana mountain and hold it aloft. The thing needed is faith and yet more faith. Very good. That's good.
My life is my message, Sai says, and he teaches us in myriad ways. My life is my message, Sai says, and he teaches us in myriad ways. As a child he began his mammoth mission to awaken divinity in us was his vision. As a child he began his mammoth mission to awaken divinity in us was his vision.
In June 1961, Swami, accompanied by 100 fortunate devotees, made a trip to Badrinath to re-energize the idol of Badrinarayan in the Sanctum Sanctorum and blessed many rishis and devotees on the way. He himself led a trek of 18 kilometers from Nandaprayag to Badrinath over 2 days, and on the holy day of June 17, manifested the Netralingam that has been installed there by Adi Shankaracharya 1200 years before, materialized 108 golden bilwa leaves, recharged it with divine potency by performing the Abhishekam to the Lingam himself, and restored it to its place in the temple. As time went on, the frequency of Swami's discourses increased, and each phrase, each word had the ring of immortality, of Sathya, or fundamental truth. He exhorted his audiences to wake up from the slumber of ages and of samsara, from repeated cycle of birth and death, to seek true freedom. His discourses were collected and eventually became the volumes of Sri Sathya Sai Speaks. In 1958, on the auspicious day of Shivratri, Swami started Sanatana Sarathi, or Eternal Charioteer, a monthly magazine dedicated to disseminating the words of the Avatar for the benefit of more and more people. He wrote an article each month for the publication, and these outpourings of divine knowledge and guidance became the 15 Vahinis with which he graced the world. His tremendous output was recapitulated in the following bhajan, which Swami himself named Library Song, as it refers to several of the Vahinis.
शांति वाहिनी चिर सुखदायिनी प्रशांति वाहिनी चिर सुखदायिनी जय जय साई मां जय जय साई
But prolific as his discourses and writings were, Swami always taught most by example, by simple acts such as switching off lights or closing a tap. He taught us that we should not waste. By his frugal diet, he showed us discipline by dressing in the same type of robe every day. He taught us simplicity and sealing on desires. He taught us to perform our duties. He taught us compassion and what it means to put the needs of others before ourselves. Over and over again, Swami emphasized that the very goal of life is to realize the divinity within, who we really are, and that the path to that goal is through Namasmarana, knowledge and seva. He taught us the meaning of service, that we should serve until we realize the oneness we share with all. Who can forget the sight of him at the huge Narayana Seva for the villagers of Puttaparthi and beyond, bending and straightening, as he generously served each one of the villagers waiting to be fed. Through this precious and touching example, he exemplified the meaning of Manava Seva is Madhava Seva. Let us offer our salutations to our God and Guru Sri Sathya Sai Baba, who showed us the path of salvation through Seva and the path to liberation.
वंदनम अभिवंदनम सत्य साई की वंदनम वंदनम अभिवंदनम सत्य साई की वंदनम राम सेवनि वेद सारमु विप्पि चेप्पि ग्राम सेवनि वेद सारमु विप्पि चेप्पि मनिषिलो माधवुनि चूपिन वेदमूर्तिकी वंदनम मन वेदमूर्तिकी वंदनम वंदनम अभिवंदनम सत्य साई की वंदनम वंदनम अभिवंदनम सत्य साई की वंदनम మోక్షమంటే వేరు లేదని సేవ ద్వారా పొందవచ్చని మోక్షమంటే వేరు లేదని సేవ ద్వారా పొందవచ్చని ముక్తి మార్గం చూపుచున్న మోక్షదాతకు వందనం మన మోక్షదాతకు వందనం వందనం అభివందనం सत्य साई की वंदनम वंदनम अभिवंदनम सत्य साई की वंदनम सत्य साई की वंदनम सत्य साई की वंदनम.
Loving devotees invited Swami to come and live in other cities in India and offer to build dwellings for him. Ishwarama, with the mother's love for her child, pleaded with Swami to stay in Puttaparthi. He promised that he would never leave Puttaparthi and that he would make arrangements for his devotees to come there for his darshan instead. But Ishwarama was not finished. Her compassionate heart was moved greatly by the sight she saw. An old woman struggling to carry water for herself from the river far away. A young boy weighed down by carrying his heavy books for miles to school. A desperate parent carrying a sick infant for miles in search of basic medical care. Saddened to see the ongoing plight of the villagers, she asked her divine son for 3 boons.
One day, Ishwaramma called her divine son near and pleaded in a voice so sweet and clear, give me 3 boons for the people here. Vidya, Vaidya, Vari, Sathya, my dear, Sathya, my dear. Selfless are your boons, said Sathya lovingly. I grant them to you most willingly. And up sprang hospitals, schools and wells, for in every utterance of yours Oh Lord, sigh, truth alone dwells. Oh Lord, sigh, truth alone dwells.
Again, by example, Swami demonstrated how to love and respect a mother's wishes, but in a manner only divinity could accomplish. Swami established schools and hospitals. In 1954, he laid the foundation stone for a 5-room hospital just outside the ashram. There were no bulldozers or cranes available, so every brick, window, and door of the building was hand-carried and placed by devotees out of their love for Swami. As they labored in the hot sun, he was always there, talking, encouraging, helping, bringing juice or water to refresh them. And when the hospital opened, Swami was a constant fixture, seeing patients with Dr. Sitaramaya, the first superintendent of the hospital, and accomplishing miraculous cures with the only medicines available there: vitamins, antacids, paracetamol, and a tonic made of dried herbs. So miraculous were the cures that people started writing from places far away, asking for the magic tonic that could cure everything. Little did they know that it was Swami's divine touch and power that effected the cure. The tonic was only an instrument. The general hospital followed a few years later, and then in 1990, to the surprise of all who surrounded him, Swami announced the first super specialty hospital in Puttaparthi and said that it would be built and inaugurated on his birthday the following year. Despite all obstacles, the divine sankalpa cannot fail, and the first operation was performed in the new hospital in November 23rd, 1991.
ಮೊಸಗೇವು ಓದಾರ್ಚುಚುಂದುವು ఉపశమన మొసగేవు ఓదార్చుచుందువు జాడ్యముల బాపి ఈ జనులనెల్లా దీవించుటే నీదు దివ్యలీలా నీదు దివ్యలీలా దివ్యలీలా నీదు దివ్యలీలా దివ్యలీలా నీదు దివ్యలీలా దివ్యలీలా నీదు దివ్యలీలా.
నిర్మించినా ఏ విద్యాలయం నిర్మించినా వ్యాపారం వ్యాపారం వ్యాపారం. కానీ ఉచితంగా బీదలను చూచి కరుణించేటువంటి వ్యక్తి కనిపించటం లేదు. కనుక పల్లలు ఎందే ఇలాంటి పవిత్రమైన యొక్క శక్తిని అభివృద్ధి పరచాలని చెప్పి సంకల్పించుకొని 100 కోట్ల వ్యయం చేత మన ప్రశాంతి నందు ఒక విధమైన వైద్యాలయం స్థాపించడానికి ప్రయత్నించారు. బైపాస్ సర్జరీ కానీ బ్రెయిన్ ఆపరేషన్ చేయటం కానీ అన్ని ఉచితంగానే. దీని ప్రారంభోత్సవం కూడాను అప్పుడే నిర్ణయించుకున్నాం. 91 నవంబర్ 22 దీని ప్రారంభోత్సవం చేస్తాం. అనౌన్స్ చేయవలసి వచ్చింది. మన భారతదేశ ప్రధానమంత్రి ప్రారంభించిన తర్వాత 15 నిమిషములకే డాక్టర్లు ఆపరేషన్ ప్రారంభించారు. 3 గంటల లోపల 4 పెద్ద ఆపరేషన్లు అంతా జరిగాయి. ఒకటి చాలా కాంప్లికేటెడ్, ఆ హార్ట్ లోపల రంధ్రం ఉంటుండాలి. అలాంటి ఆపరేషన్ కూడాను సక్సెస్ అయిపోయింది. అందరూ క్షేమంగా ఉన్నారు.
In the early days of the hospital, the super specialty hospital, Swami used to visit very often without any advance notice. Simply he would drive in the morning around about any time between 9:30 and 10:30. One would expect him. So in one of those visits, when he came and we received him, and he came inside the dome, and then he said, I would like to go and see one of the operation theatres. So at that moment, the operation theatre in the cardiac surgery was vacant and was being prepared for the next surgery. So Dr. Sathya led him to that place, and as there was already, as you know, a lot of crowd around that operation theatre, knowing that Swami is coming there, and then the nurses and others were all gathering around the front door of that operation theatre. And Swami, as he was approaching, and he started moving in towards the operation theatre, as a young doctor who was a new recruit was standing somewhere by the side, and he said, suddenly he burst out, Sir, you can't enter the operation theatre. Nobody's allowed it except those doctors. So Swami turned, looked at him very consolingly and smilingly, and then still continued to move on. Then the doctor said, whoever you are, please wear at least a sterilized gown, green gown, instead of walking in like this in your red dress. Thus saying, Swami told him, you please keep quiet, everything is all right. And then Swami went in, looked at the operation theatre, and then came out. It was apparently because there was a suspicion that there was some infection in the operation theatre, and Swami went in and came out. Afterwards, Dr. Sathya explained to all the doctors what is the impact of Swami's entering a place. He narrated an incident which took place, which had taken place about a month ago, and the headmistress had come to Swami and said, Swami, already 4 or 5 children have fallen sick with measles. So I have only one small sick room and all of them are crowded into that. So at this rate, if more children fall sick, I don't know how to handle it. I need your help, Swami. So Swami said very calmly, okay, you go back to the school. I'll be there by about 10:30 in the morning. And then Swami, after darshan and bhajan and all that, left by his car to the school. The headmistress was there waiting at the doorstep to receive him. And as soon as he entered, he told the headmistress, take me to each one of the rooms in the school so that I can go and have a look at that place, and that will be all right. So the poor lady had painstakingly taken Swami from room to room, floor to floor, and so on, and brought him down all the way to the outer door for him to give him a send-off finally after the event. Swami smiled and told her, yes, you have taken me to all the rooms, but you have forgotten one place. So I would like to go to that place. That lady said, Swami, I think I have taken you to every room in the school. No, you have not taken me to the second floor landing, upstairs where it goes into the terrace. So she took him up the stairs. Swami walked up all the 2 flights of steps and then reached the top floor landing and stood there for a few seconds. Then he even went out into the terrace and walked around a bit all around, and then came back, walked all the way down and to the front door, and then smilingly told the headmistress, now all the infection is gone. Now the children will be all right. Even the sick children will recover in a day or 2. So thus ended this remarkable visit where Swami's mere presence disinfects a room of any type of bacteria or virus, and measles was also at the time a prevalent fear, and that fear was eradicated once and for all.
You had the opportunity to work at the hospital. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of work that you did at the hospital?
I came to know that through the hospital authorities that all the patients who had come there, who had need for any surgery, they had to.
This was cardiac surgery.
Yeah, cardiac surgery was the main thing that was going on, and there were a huge number of people, all from different parts, from the rural parts of Andhra, who used to come for operation. And when they showed when they were detected and found that they needed surgery, but there's so much rush that people who came for an
initial checkup,
they had to wait really 5 years, 7 years also sometimes to get an appointment for surgeries. The queue was so long. But since they were rural folk and since they are not well, they are impatient to get okay. So they always used to ask when is our operation going to be and write letters. And Swami said that all these patients, they come, they are very poor and they come with a lot of hope and thinking Swami is going to do everything for them. And so we must give them reassurance that we will look after them and that you have to be a little patient, but it will take a little while. So have hope, Swami will look after you. So reassuring letter had to be written to so many patients because there are thousands of them coming and waiting. So that job had to be done, and with Swami's grace, I was able to get the chance to do that work for him.
Also a wonderful way.
And that is how it happened. Yeah. I started writing letters to all the patients.
And it's a wonderful way in which Swami helped keep alive the flame of hope in their hearts, that they would ultimately get better health.
Yeah, and the Swami wanted the hospital to give them the assurance that they will be looked after, and through Swami they will get all the necessity to get back to health, and we must give them hope and reassurance and not say, you can't come, you have to wait for so long, so it's not possible. We cannot say such messages. So letters have to be written in a hopeful way, and I was able to do part of that.
The critical role that women play as the first gurus for their children and as the center of the family and therefore of society. The first institution of higher learning that Swami opened was the Sri Sathya Sai Arts and Science College for Women in Anantapur in 1968. Another vital part of his mammoth mission to reform and reshape education, both for the heart and the mind, was Swami's Bal Vikas program that was established in 1969 to foster the blossoming of human values of Sathya, truth, Dharma, right action, Prema, love, Shanti, peace, and Ahimsa, non-violence, latent in every child. He said that Bal Vikas is the primary basis of the great movement to restore righteousness, Dharma, in the world. In the same year, Swami founded the Sri Sathya Sai College for Arts, Science, and Commerce for Men in Bangalore, Sri Sathya Sai College for Men in Prashanti Nilayam, followed by the Sri Sathya Sai Institute for Higher Learning, which combines the colleges in Vrindavan, Puttaparthi, and Anantapur. Sri Sathya Sai primary and secondary schools were established in Puttaparthi and throughout India and overseas. In 2010, the Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini project started in order to harness technology to disseminate value-based education to all children throughout India.
పాఠశాలలు కళాశాలలు ప్రారంభించితివి.
పాఠశాలలు కళాశాలలు ప్రారంభించితివి.
లౌకిక విద్యను ఆధ్యాత్మికమును ఏకము చేసితివి.
లౌకిక విద్యను ఆధ్యాత్మికమును ఏకము చేసితివి.
గురు బ్రహ్మ నీవే పరం జ్యోతి నీవే.
గురు బ్రహ్మ నీవే పరం జ్యోతి నీవే. అంతేవాసుల పారకృపతో ఆదరమున చూచెదవు.
చింతను చేర్చి ఉపదేశించి చేరువ చేసెదవు.
శీల సంపద ప్రాముఖ్యమును బాలబాలికలకెరిగించి.
శీల సంపద ప్రాముఖ్యమును బాలబాలికలకెరిగించి.
సకల జగతికి ఆదర్శముగా సంచరించుమని తెలిపెదవు.
సకల జగతికి ఆదర్శముగా సంచరించుమని తెలిపెదవు.
గురు బ్రహ్మ నీవే పరం జ్యోతి నీవే.
గురు బ్రహ్మ నీవే పరం జ్యోతి నీవే.
In November 1995, Bhagavan began to fulfill the last of his promises to Ishwarama, that is, to relieve the suffering of the people of Rayalaseema, the arid district around Puttaparthi, due to drought and lack of drinking water. His mandate was simple and direct: provide safe drinking water throughout the year to as many people as possible in as many villages in the shortest possible time. Accordingly, a direct project plan was drawn up to bring water to the villages involving 4 kinds of methods. The main strategy was to tap river water where available from dams, canals, and riverbeds, and then deliver the water through an elaborate network of storage reservoirs, booster pumps, and pipes. A total of 731 villages and 1.25 million people benefited from the project. Over the next years, similar projects brought life-giving water to residents of East and West Godavari, Medak, and other districts of Andhra Pradesh, and to Chennai, one of the largest cities of India.
మనసులోన పూచెను మమతా జలజాతము. కనులలోన పొంగెను కరుణా జలపాతము. మనసులోన పూచెను మమతా జలజాతము. కలుషితమగు నీరు త్రాగి కలతనుందు దీనుల. కలుషితమగు నీరు త్రాగి కలతనుందు దీనుల. కష్టములను బాపి కరుణను కురిపించినావు. దాహార్తిని తొలగించగ దయతో సాయి గంగను ధరణికి రప్పించిన పరమేశ్వరుడవు నీవు. పరమేశ్వరుడవు నీవు. పరమేశ్వరుడవు నీవు. కనులలోన పొంగెను కరుణా జలపాతము. మనసులోన పూచెను మమతా జలజాతము. గ్రామాల్లో నగరాల్లో కొండల్లో కోనల్లో, గ్రామాల్లో నగరాల్లో కొండల్లో కోనల్లో, అడుగకనే ఎల్లరకు ఇచ్చినావు త్రాగునీరు. అందరిపై అనుగ్రహము అపారముగా కురిపిల్చి, జాలి చూపి జగమునే ఏలుచుందువు, జాలి చూపి జగమునే ఏలుచుందువు, జాలి చూపి జగమునే ఏలుచుందువు.
In the 1960s, the Sri Sathya Sai Seva organizations were established in India, through which people of all religions, social classes, and castes could collectively engage in selfless service to foster the eternal values, truth, peace, righteousness, love, and nonviolence, to accelerate spiritual evolution. The Sri Sathya Sai Central Trust was formed in 1972, followed successively by the World Council, the Prashanti Council, the Sathya Sai International Organization, and finally, in 2021, the Sri Sathya Sai Global Council. Beginning in the 1960s, more and more international devotees were called to Prashanti Nilayam by Swami. The foremost among these was Dr. John Hislop. They and many early Indian devotees carried Swami's divine message to all nations. Across the world, Sri Sathya Sai centers are currently active in more than 125 countries. Swami established the structure for these centers, which focus on devotional activities such as bhajans, study circle, meditation, and seva projects. For children, there is Sri Sathya Sai Educare. The first center in Bethesda, Maryland, was opened in Dr. K.C. Pani's home, which many current and past members of our center attended in those early years. In 1974, another Sai Center opened in Mrs. Shanta and Mr. Nanjundaya's home. After their departure to India, this Sai Center was continued in the same location by Mr. Vishwanathan and his wife Sharada. This center came to be known as the Sri Sathya Sai South Bethesda Center.
God of love, fill my heart with your treasure. Let me share, let me care, let me love without measure. Father of love, let me be like you, kind and true forever. God of love, love me now and forever. God of light, hold my life in your keeping. Let me find peace of mind. Guard me waking or sleeping. Father of light, guide me every day, all the way forever. God lead me onwards forever. Father of light, guide me every day, all the way forever. God of light, lead me onwards forever.
The Sri Sathya Sai South Bethesda Center has enjoyed much grace from Swami since its inception. In the 1970s, Swami specifically posed for a picture for the altar of the center and signed it. This picture was then conveyed personally to the center by Dr. R.S. Padmanabhan. Swami was gracious enough to involve himself in many aspects of our center, even giving instructions on how the bhajans were to be conducted and directing that only vibhuti was to be shared at the end of the bhajan before everyone dispersed. Over the years, further direct instruction from Swami included permission to project bhajan lyrics on a screen during bhajan sessions, organization of the devotees of the center into geographically based clusters so that more people could participate in more seva and the process for selection of center office bearers. As Swami's medical mission expanded in the years following, several members of the Sri Sathya Sai South Bethesda Center were blessed to participate in the opening of the GI endoscopy unit in the super specialty hospital and have been regular contributors to the international medical camps held at Guru Purnima and Birthday in Prashanti Nilayam and other venues around the world. And always, Swami was a magnet in Prashanti Nilayam, attracting thousands to his ashram for darshan, sparshan and sambhashan. Weighed down by the cares of life, many would travel to Puttaparthi for relief of their worldly woes, for spiritual guidance, for the fulfillment of desires, or just out of love for him. And everyone would return home fulfilled and spiritually recharged after enjoying the bliss of his divine presence and beautiful form.
Love is my balm, truth is my bread, peace is my food. Love is my balm, truth is my bread, peace is my food. Love is my balm, truth is my bread, peace is my food. Love is my balm, truth is my bread, peace is my food.
We owe him everything. So on this, his 96th birthday, what can we offer him? We can offer what he wants. Minds and hearts filled with love, purity, and compassion, and bodies that will bend to serve him in the form of fellow human beings, animals, and the environment. Let us pray that the beautiful images and music we have heard over the past hour reverberate within our minds and hearts, and remind us always how fortunate we are to be under the loving universal umbrella of our compassionate divine Lord.
is my message, Sai says, and he teaches us in myriad ways. My life is my message, Sai says, and he teaches us in myriad ways. As a child he began his mammoth mission to awaken divinity in us was his vision. As a child he began his mammoth mission to awaken